Okay, let's talk a little bit about some of the things we're going to need to put our pedal board together. There's a lot of different ways you can make a board. We're going to give you some of those options through here, but let's start with some of the materials that we're going to be using for our board today. First of all, you're going to need some 1x3 lumber. You can get this at any hardware store, and just pine board is fine. Just straight 1x3 pieces of wood, and you'll need to kind of plan out exactly how much you need, but 3 or 4 8-foot lengths of this should be sufficient. In order to cut that wood, you're going to need some sort of a saw. You could use a jigsaw or a circular saw, or if you have a table saw, even a hand saw will work if you're desperate. Circular saw, anything like that, normally is going to be just fine. So you'll need to have that as far as tools. Obviously, you're going to need various different pedals, and whatever pedals you have, there's various different ways of mounting them. We're going to discuss some of those options with you as well. You're going to need power supplies to power the board with. I'm a big fan of the One Spot, which is a very small power adapter that can power multiple pedals. Here's the box for the One Spot, so you can see what that looks like. There's also a daisy chain cable that will actually allow you to connect several of the different pedals together. You'll need at least one of these. You may need more depending on how many pedals you have on your board. Also, if you have any problem pedals that use different type of adapter ends as opposed to the Boss style barrel plugs, you may need 1/8-inch connectors. Some of your pedals may use a standard 9-volt type connector and not have an AC jack. One Spot does make these, so you can get these directly from Visual Sound, who is the maker of the One Spot. In addition to that, we're going to need some other things. We're going to need some flat black paint to paint our board once we have that built. This may come in handy. This is pipe strapping. You can also use pipe retainers, which are usually 1.5 inches in diameter and have little flat flanges, kind of horseshoe shaped. Sometimes those will work. The other thing that we use frequently for that is bike chain. Now, this is just a regular standard bicycle chain. You can get these at most hardware stores. I got my hardware. Any bike shop will carry this. You might even be able to get the guy to give you one for free if they have an old busted chain. Doesn't matter what condition the chain is in, really. We're going to use that along with a chain repair tool. This is available again at most hardware stores, $5–10 at the most you're going to pay for this. This allows you to disassemble the chain length into its individual components. And once you've disassembled the chain, you have these small little links. We're going to actually use these as brackets on the underside of our pedals to permanently mount them to the board. Now, on some pedals you won't be able to do that for various different reasons. You can go to the old standby, which is Velcro. A lot of guitar players like Velcro on their boards because it makes everything easy to take off and reconfigure. I'm not as wild about it because it also makes things a little less stable on the board, so I prefer to go with the bike chain links. There's various different choices you can make here. You're going to have to think it out a little bit. In addition to that, you're going to need some other tools. We're going to need a measuring tape or a yardstick in order to measure our wood before we cut it. You may need some small screwdrivers. We have a Phillips and a flathead here. Power drill. You can use this for screwing. You also need to do some actual drilling of holes, so you're going to need some bits for that. You're going to need various different screws. Here we have some drywall screws. We're going to use these black drywall screws basically to assemble our pedal board, the wood products on it. Some smaller screws in order to mount the pedals to the board and to also put down our cable ties and things of that nature. Speaking of cable ties, we're going to need some nylon cable ties in order to clean our wiring up and keep everything looking nice and good. In addition to that, you're going to need some cables for your guitar. I really like these Planet Waves cables. They are very easy to make. They're solderless. You don't need a soldering iron to put these together, and you can easily make the cables in any custom length that you want. This is enough for about 5 cables. It comes with 10 feet of cable length as well as 10 connectors. Various different other types of connectors are available for these as well. You'll also need some sort of a power strip. I ran across this at a local Ace hardware store. It's made by a company called Woods. Their website is woods.com, I believe, and it's called a Yellow Jacket. I really like this because it's a little smaller, a little more compact than your typical power strip, and it's very easy to mount on the board, which you'll see soon enough. And it keeps things out of the way, and I really like the design of this. It works very well for pedal boards. That pretty much covers the tools we'll need, with the exception of this. Now, this isn't absolutely mandatory, but you'll probably want some sort of a volt-ohm meter. The main thing we're going to use this for is continuity checking. We're going to use this to test our cables to make sure that all of our cables are passing audio properly before we build the board. And that's a real important step, because you don't want to get everything put together and then try to turn it on and no signal's coming through. So then you have to tear it all apart and figure out why. This way we can test things before we even put it in. That pretty much covers the tools and supplies we're going to need for our board, and things are going to vary depending upon which pedals you have and how you decide to lay out your board. Give some thought to that, and we'll put everything together and give you some options as we go along.